Brooklyn, New York, a city known for its vibrant diversity and bustling energy. It's a place where dreams are made and lives intertwine in the most unexpected ways. Our story begins here in this very city where two families lived, each with their own hopes, struggles, and secrets. At the heart of it all was Eugene, a successful businessman who had worked hard to build a life of comfort for himself and his son Jason. His wife had left him years ago, and he missed her dearly. He was lonely, but never let it show. Jason, Eugene's son, was a hard-working young man who had recently married the love of his life, Maria. They were high school sweethearts, and their bond was unbreakable. Eugene adored his daughter-in-law and saw in her a reflection of the kind, loving woman he once called his wife. Their son, Michael, was the apple of Eugene's eye, always bringing a smile to his face with his infectious laughter and curious nature. The family was complete, happy, and seemingly untouched by any shadows of secrecy. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. Eugene found himself inexplicably drawn to Maria, a longing that went beyond the typical father-in-law admiration. His feelings were intensifying, becoming a constant and welcome guest in his thoughts. He found excuses to spend time with Maria, often asking her to pick up things from his office or run errands for him. These moments together were filled with stolen glances and unspoken tension, creating an atmosphere of unease that went unnoticed by others. Torn between his affection for his son and his growing obsession with his daughter-in-law, Eugene struggled to keep his true feelings hidden. He knew his actions could shatter not only his family but also his own sense of morality. Caught in this internal battle, he tried to push away the thoughts that tormented him, hoping they would eventually fade. But instead, they only grew stronger, becoming an ever-present ache in his heart. One day, unable to bear the emotional burden any longer, Eugene decided to confront his feelings head-on. He booked a flight to Miami, seeking a fresh start and a chance to escape the painful reality he had been facing. With the hope that distance would help, he began a new chapter in Miami. Meanwhile, back in Brooklyn, Jason and Maria noticed Eugene's absence and grew concerned. They tried reaching him, but their calls went straight to voicemail. Days turned into weeks and still there was no reply. A part of them knew Eugene wasn't one to ignore his responsibilities, so they started to worry about his well-being. With growing concern, Jason and Maria decided to take matters into their own hands. They packed their bags and embarked on a journey to Miami to find answers. As they stepped off the plane, they were met with the warm Miami sun and the promise of a new day. But the joy of the moment couldn't touch the worry that clouded their minds. They were determined to find Eugene and bring him back home. Their search led them to a luxurious apartment overlooking the ocean. It was everything Eugene had ever wanted, and more. Stepping inside, they found a beautifully decorated home, but no sign of their loved one. Just then, the door opened and a stunning woman stood before them. Her eyes, filled with surprise, held a mix of emotions that mirrored their own. "Can I help you?" she asked cautiously. And in that moment, Jason and Maria realized they weren't just looking for Eugene. They were searching for answers to a mystery that had only just begun. The woman introduced herself as Isabella, Eugene's fiancée. She explained that Eugene had moved to Miami several months ago and had become engaged to her. Hearing this, Jason felt as though the ground had been swept from under his feet. The world he knew seemed to crumble, leaving him lost and confused. He looked at Maria, her face ashen, mirroring the turmoil in his own heart. How could his father, the man who had always been a pillar of strength for them, be engaged to someone else? Questions raced through his mind, but he knew better than to confront Isabella further. In that moment, his concern for his father's well-being outweighed any anger or betrayal he might have felt. "Thank you for telling us," Maria finally managed to say, her voice trembling slightly. "We came to talk to our father. Would it be possible to see him?" Isabella hesitated, her gaze flickering between the couple. She understood that this news must be devastating for them, but she was bound by loyalty to Eugene. After a moment, she agreed to let Jason and Maria speak to Eugene, hoping to ease the tension that had filled the room. When Eugene entered the room, he was met with a sight that brought a wave of emotions over him. His son, Jason, stood before him, his face a mixture of shock and disappointment. Beside him stood Maria, her eyes filled with a sadness that mirrored his own. In that instant, he knew he couldn't hide from the truth any longer. All the secrets, all the stolen moments, they had come crashing down around him like a house of cards. The weight of his actions pressed down on him, suffocating him with guilt and despair. "Dad, what's going on?" Jason's voice echoed in the room, breaking the silence. His tone was quiet, but the pain behind his words cut deep into Eugene's heart. It was a question that had been echoing in Eugene's own heart, one he had tried so desperately to ignore. He looked from Jason to Maria, their faces a mirror to his own turmoil. In that moment, he knew he couldn't keep living a life of lies. "I'm so sorry," Eugene began, his voice cracking with emotion. The words were a mere whisper, failing to capture the depth of his remorse. "I didn't mean for things to turn out like this." "Like what, Dad?" Jason's voice, though soft, held a tremor of anger. "How could you do this to us, to Mom?" The mention of his mother brought a fresh wave of pain to Eugene's eyes. He had failed not only his family but also the memory of the woman he had loved dearly. Eugene's gaze dropped, unable to meet his son's accusing eyes. He had betrayed the trust of his entire family, shattering the bonds they had held so dear. Maria reached out, her touch a silent comfort to Jason. She understood the depth of his pain, having felt the turmoil of betrayal herself. In that moment, they stood united, their shared hurt forming a silent bond between them. Eugene wanted to reach out, to touch his son's shoulder, to convey the depth of his sorrow. But Jason flinched away, the gesture too painful to bear. The walls that had crumbled earlier now stood tall, blocking any hope of immediate reconciliation. As the weight of his actions settled upon him, Eugene realized that rebuilding trust would be a long and arduous journey. It wouldn't be easy, but he was willing to do whatever it took to mend the broken pieces of his family. With a heavy heart, Eugene knew that winning back his son's trust would take time and unwavering effort. He had to prove, through actions, not words, that he was worthy of their love and forgiveness. In the weeks that followed, Eugene worked tirelessly to rebuild the shattered trust. He showed up for family events, offering support and understanding without expecting anything in return. He listened, he apologized, and he made amends, acknowledging the pain he had caused. Slowly but surely, cracks began to appear in the wall around Jason's heart. The bond between father and son, though bruised, started to heal. It was a slow process, but Eugene was patient, knowing that true reconciliation takes time. And then one day, something remarkable happened. Jason, with a hesitant smile, reached out and touched his father's shoulder. It was a simple gesture, yet it held the weight of 1,000 apologies. In that moment, Eugene knew that the road to healing had just begun. While Eugene's relationship with Jason started to mend, his marriage remained fractured. The strain of his actions had created a chasm between him and Maria. Despite his best efforts, he couldn't seem to bridge the gap. Maria, deeply hurt by Eugene's betrayal, needed more time to heal. She pulled away from him, seeking solace in her own thoughts and memories. Eugene respected her need for space, understanding that trust, once broken, can be challenging to restore. He continued to be a present and loving grandfather to Michael, cherishing the moments they shared. Michael, too, sensed the shift in his parents' relationship and tried his best to bring them together with innocent gestures and words. As months passed, Eugene realized that winning back Maria's trust would require more than apologies. It would need a complete transformation of his character. He had to prove himself worthy of her love and respect, not just for him, but for the sake of their family's future. In the depths of his despair, Eugene found solace in the unwavering love of his grandson, Michael. The child's innocent hugs and bedtime stories were a constant reminder of the love that had been torn apart. Eugene vowed to himself that he wouldn't give up.